beware! Beyond here, we have a spooky TransVoiceLessons Halloween special. Today we are going to be doing some spooky, scary, haunted Halloween sounds, and we have a special guest joining us who badly needs a name. So if you have any ideas, post them down below in the comments. This video will be light and fun, and I encourage you to listen, mimic, and explore. The broader your experience of vocalizations are, the bigger your possibilities as a vocalist become. So while as lighthearted as this video is, there's a ton of great vocal exercise and practice and exploration to be had here. Now, a quick word. All sounds have an incredible diversity of ways to do them. So be creative on your own, take this your own way, spin it and flip it, riff in your own style. That will allow you to get the most unique direct experience for yourself, which is the point of this, so you can get experience vocalizing. So let's jump in and get spooky. Number 1, the ghost. What would Halloween be without its spooky, archetypical ghost character? Now, you can make this sound a ton of different ways. I'll get us started off like this. So just kind of mimic me here. We'll say, ooh. It doesn't really sound too compelling or committed. And then what we're gonna try and do is just move a little bit with that. Try to open it up, make it sound a lot larger and smoother. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And you hear I start to add a little bit of shake in it. So I'm gonna take my pitch and I'm gonna sort of slowly arc up with it over time, while at the same time trying to shake inside each one. So you could start with a simple arc. Ooh. See if you can just get that. You can do it at any pitch, you can do it with any quality, and then try to shake while you're moving across that arc like this. I'll start without. Ooh. And then I'll add the shake. Ooh. And you can get all kinds of fun things like that. You can also get it a lot higher, of course, too. Ooh. And then sort of spooky ghost sounds. Ooh. So you can go higher, you can go lower, you can sound larger, you can sound smaller, but the key there is you want to have a lot of that shaky movement that's gliding all over the place. And to do that, it requires you to really loosen up your voice as well. You can't really do a ghost sound if you're all tight. It just sounds too brassy, too heavy. You can still hear the movement of the pitch like that gives it that ghost characteristic, but typically we see it a bit smoother. Number 2, demon voices. These sounds can be powerful and epic and are some of the most interesting sounds that we can explore. Now, because of that, they do have a tricky element about producing them, but as always, listen carefully, give yourself ample opportunities to explore, and listen while you try to do it. So I'm gonna start with the sound like so. And you hear that fluttering? That's the key challenge to the sound. So listen really carefully for that across the board. Once I have something like that, I'm gonna try to take away all of my voice, all of my pitch, and we'll be left with something like this. And then once we have that, we can really tune that, explore that, and play that a variety of ways to get different demon sounds. You can get all kinds of split sounds like that. Yes. All kinds of demon sounds, and there's a lot of really interesting varieties that you can get here. I need an evil phrase. Practice more of students need to practice more. So yeah, you can get all kinds of crazy sounds with a demon voice. That really interesting flutter sound, that is an epiglottal trill. So the epiglottis is this really small piece of tissue above your vocal folds, and it helps protect your airway when you swallow and eat. And typically it's passive or inert when we vocalize, but there's ways that we can position and make sound that actually cause the epiglottis to trill or flap, like when you roll your tongue, like rrrr. You can also get diplophonic sounds where it almost sounds like you're producing more than one pitch at the same time. So this is a really cool space to play with. Give yourself time, try to explore into it. If you want to try to slowly work into that epiglottal trill,
you're gonna look for something that's a bit like this.
And once you have that, simply try to hold the sound like that and start to exhale a bit more air, like so. You can usually get a little bit of that shaking. Don't push too hard. So yeah, just start with that sort of nerdly, sort of stitch voice sound. Try to move from that, relax, exhale towards that, and see if you can get some flutter. But don't think you have to do a certain gimmick or tactic to figure out a voice. The best way to figure out a voice is to just work on making the sound that you're trying to make and listening to what you perceive as closer or further. But those are some useful paths that you can try to follow to look for that flutter. Number 3. The cackling witch. This is one of the most infamous Halloween tropes that we have, and there's tons of different qualities and variations to do here. One of the main things about the witch sound that the other sounds don't really have much of is acting. You really have to embody and personify a maniacal laughing witch. You have to be silly and cartoonish about it. This is why we explore and experiment. But just get started by looking for a laughing sound that's a bit bright and shrill. Like so. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha, yeah. Absurd, it almost sounds nerdy or squawky or buzzy. And then once you've got this then you're gonna start to laugh. So, still sounds a bit cheesy, right? So then what I'm gonna do is get a bit louder, and I'm actually gonna be adding in some of that epiglottal trill that we learned in the demon sound. Like so. You can also do variations without the epiglottal trill. But it tends to just be a bit more shrill laughter, kind of maniacal. We can also experiment with different age expressions of our witch sound. So if I were to add a bit more noise and grit, a bit more constriction to it, that'll tend to make it sound older or presbyphonic, which gives us a bit more of a hag witch quality, like so. Why, your soul is mine. We want to take this time to say thank you to all of our amazing patrons who make our work at TransVoiceLessons possible. If you haven't checked out the work on our Patreon, you're missing out. We've got hours of exclusive voice videos and educational resources. We have a vibrant Discord community, and we host practice events where you can come and work on your voice in a supportive space. And you get to support the work that we're doing here to help others learn voice. So get over there and check it out. And thank you, current patrons. Number 4. Zombies. The most frightful thing, a corpse walking at night, shrieking and gasping for breath, as it is not quite dead, but not quite alive. One of the most classic tropes that we have. And of course, there's tons of varieties. You've got your Walking Dead zombies, you've got your 28 Days Later zombies, you've got your, what other zombie movies are there? There is just so much diversity. You've got your freshly killed zombies, your dry zombies like the mummies, you've got your sort of crawling limbs. All sorts of variations of the living dead are in our fiction. And so we will explore a variety of sounds to reflect that. Let's start simply. The kind of Frankenstein-esque zombie groan. That's a ghoulish, low IQ zombie. Now we're gonna shift a little bit more towards a choking, bloody zombie. getting these sort of choking qualities in there. It almost sounds like they were freshly killed maybe 2 weeks ago. To get the mummy, we're gonna make it sound drier, a little bit older. This is a bit of a fiercer, modern zombie sound. Now with this one, we're gonna try to make it like we're hawking up a loogie. So there's a couple variations on the zombie. Play to your heart's content and have fun. Number 5, a werewolf's howl. Under the pale moonlight, something happens. What is that? A werewolf, of course, one of our favorite puppers that we can pet and snuggle with. And this werewolf is not too difficult. The key is that you've got to make the sound like it's far away. You can do that by blocking it with your lips. You can do that by doing that. Lots of different versions. You can play with varieties in how loud it is, how soft it is. They give you different qualities, and you can play with a lot of variety in noise, or how dog-like or beast-like it sounds by comparison. Now it's time to geek out about some of these sounds. The ghost sound is useful because it explores a range of really loosening your voice up while you shake and go to higher and lower pitches. Having that fluid pitch movement like that, especially that very shaky vibrato while moving in a direction, really requires you to be relaxed and loose with your voice. If you're too tight, it makes it really hard to get that shake and that movement in pitch. And also when you have that smoothness, that pitch movement, and that hollowness together, it tends to be an environment that allows people to find very relaxed and higher pitched qualities, which is something that's very useful in voice feminization and singing more broadly. There's actually a famous expression of this in Estel voice training with the sob sound. Ooh, it's that quality, and it tends to encourage, but not always guarantees, a loose sound. There is a lot to learn from the demon voice. An epiglottal trill is a really fun tool to have in your vocal arsenal. It's used in a lot of different character voices, and it's a way of adding a lot of grit and noise into a voice without making it very uncomfortable or overbearing to maintain. It also produces an amazingly diverse effect depending on if you're vocalizing or if you're doing the non-voiced form that we do with the demon voice. The epiglottal trill has a lot of interesting intersections with other vocal abilities, like beatboxing, like adding some grit sometimes, and also making silly noises like cartoon those kinds of noises like that. So it's a really fun one to pick up and learn. This is a great environment to develop that sound in. Which sounds really let you get into the acting and performance of a character. The other ones aren't really human. Demons, werewolves, given when they're in their human state, and zombies and ghosts, all non-human. Maybe once were human. And so the witch being human allows us to explore this persona and character. Because when you act out a character, you're really expressing intent and will through your voice, which is really the fundamental ability in voice altogether, is can you intend to do something and then do it? Can you will that vocalization into action? Exercises which involve some degree of acting are a great arena to develop that ability in. In addition to that, it helps you develop more coordination at louder and stronger volumes with high pitches and a shrill voice. Now, do be cautious here. We definitely don't want to spend all day shrieking and cackling like a witch. That can tire your voice out, but it's fun to explore, and it's good to test those boundaries from time to time. Just remember, that brighter sound at first allows us to get louder with less work. That shrillness allows the voice to carry and sound much louder than what it feels like we're ultimately pushing or using. And that principle helps us protect our voice over time. So never feel like you're blasting or really shrieking. We want to create more loudness through the rest of what's going on in the voice. Zombie sounds let you play with a variety of occlusions. One of the things that makes them sound dead is that they're partially blocked. That could be which is more blocking from the vocal folds, or which is blocking a little bit higher up. And playing with occlusions can be useful because Getting an ear for and a sense for occlusions can help you avoid unwanted occlusions when you're practicing singing or voice feminization or masculinization. The werewolf sound is really cool because it lets you explore different ways of smoothing across your vocal break. So maybe you're familiar with this idea of a falsetto and then a not falsetto voice, and when you cross it, there's a break, like a yodel or like a voice crack. That voice crack doesn't have to be there, and there's tons of different ways to interact with that break. When we do the werewolf sound, we're ultimately going ooh, ooh. And so we can practice going smoothly over that break, or we can add a little bit of a break, which I think sounds cool for the werewolf. But we also want to explore that very smoothly. Ooh, 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 ooh. So the werewolf lets you get a really interesting environment to practice a famous sound in while working on how you smooth across your break, which means it's a great exercise to get you moving your pitch around outside the regular zones that you're typically used to doing it. Today we are going to be making some spooky, scary Halloween, what is it? Haunted. I added that adjective last time. This is such an infamous trope in Hollywood. Fuck. Every time I try to say Halloween, I say Hollywood. That's been for the last